Ralghia the Witch, Chapter 1, The Silver Dragon, Part 1. Tell me a story about Ralghia the Witch. What, her again? She's my favorite. Please, Mommy, please, tell me a story. Oh, very well. Once upon a time, there was a prince and a princess and a witch. No, the witch came later. Once upon a time, in a land far away, over mountains and through the deep forest, there lived a young prince and a princess. Philippe was tall and handsome, and Beatrice was wise and pretty. The two of them lived in the same castle, although they were not brother and sister, for the kind old king and queen took Beatrice in when she was a baby. They knew she came from a noble family, but both her parents had died, leaving her alone in the world. Thus, the king and queen raised her as if she were their own, and they hoped that someday their son Philippe would marry the princess, and the girl would become part of the family for real. It was a good thing the old king and queen were patient, because Philippe and Beatrice spent many years together without noticing each other. In the day, he practiced archery and swordsmanship, while her interests were in her studies and her needlepoint. Since he passed his days outside and she spent her time indoors, they rarely saw each other. Even at dinner, when they sat down together, they didn't talk. He was interested in horses, and she had her tatting, so they had nothing in common. But one day, "What's tatting?" "Pardon? You just said it. He liked horses, and she had her tatting." "Tatting. It means making lace." "Oh, but what about the witch?" "The witch comes later." Anyway, the prince was interested in horses, and she had her tatting, so they had nothing in common. But one day, Beatrice, weary from her work, went outside for some air. As she stood on the balcony, she saw Philippe in the courtyard. How handsome he looked, swinging his sword. How noble, how fierce. He was so magnificent, she could not look away. As she watched, a gust of wind blew. Her pink dress fluttered and billowed in the breeze, and Philippe saw the movement in the corner of his eye. He turned to look, and his eyes met hers. He stared up at Beatrice the same way she gazed upon him, a wide-eyed and open-mouthed gaze. Neither of them could stop staring. In that moment, they both knew they wanted to be together and that they were in love. Every day after that, they were side by side, and the king and the queen were glad. One afternoon, after Philippe finished his sword practice and his archery lessons, he joined Beatrice in the shade of a large tree. She dabbed at his forehead, and they leaned against the tree together. He looked in her eyes. "Beatrice," he began. "Yes? It's been a month now since you've come to watch me practice. I'm glad you're here. And I'm glad you keep me company when I work at the loom and at the spinning wheel. I never realized how lonely I was before, not until you showed me how much I've missed. I feel the same way. Is it not strange? I will stay by your side forevermore." "And so will I. Despite all the gold in the castle, all the jewels and the silver, you are the most precious thing in the world to me." If the prince had known what would happen next, he would never have said those words. But it was too late, for words, once spoken, can never be taken back. And so it was with Philippe and Beatrice. The minute those words left his lips, a strong wind blew, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and black clouds rolled in. And just ahead of the clouds, high in the sky, it was the witch. It was a dragon, Ooh! A dragon flew in from the east, a mighty dragon with magnificent silver scales. But although the dragon was a beautiful shade of silver, it was a terrifying thing to look at. His wings, as wide across as a house, were black as tar, and so were its claws, each taller than a man and strong enough to crush a boulder into 1,000 pieces. Its eyes were black, and there was no life in them. As the silver dragon flew closer, it sang a taunting song. "In this you made a sad mistake, for uttering the words you spake, and saving men from idle boast. I take that which you treasure most." "Get behind me," Philippe ordered as he grabbed his sword and shield. "But darling, no! I'll protect you," he shouted. He aimed his sword at the dragon. With his other hand, he held his shield high. The dragon sang as it swooped down. "The thing you hoped you would possess would be yours if you loved it less. It's strange those with the wherewithal love that which is ephemeral." It flapped its mighty wings, and a great wind bent the trees low, but Philippe did not fall, and Beatrice held on tight. The dragon opened its mouth wide, and a great fire came out. The fire was black, and it scorched everything it touched. But Philippe held up his shield, and it protected them both. The silver dragon flicked its long tail, striking Philippe and knocking him off his feet. He tumbled and rolled across the grass. "Philippe!" Beatrice shouted. Before he could stand, the dragon reached out with its black claws and grabbed the princess. She screamed in terror. The dragon rose up in the air, and as it flew away, it sang a taunting song. "And now that I have claimed your prize, I'll leave before your very eyes. The precious thing you thought was yours will now be mine forevermores." And with that, the dragon flew off to the east with the princess, Beatrice in its clutches. All Philippe could do was watch as his beloved was taken away. Philippe cried, but then he dried his tears. He entered the castle and approached his parents, the king and queen, in the throne room. "Mother, father," he said, "a silver dragon has carried off fair Beatrice, just as I declared my love for her." The kind old king lifted his head, both at the shock that Beatrice had been kidnapped, as well as Philippe's admission that he was in love with her. "What will you do now?" he asked. "I will search for the dragon. I will find it, and if I have to, I will kill it. I will save my Beatrice." "No, don't leave us," the queen shouted. "What will we do if we never see you again? How can we go on living if we lose you too?" "Think of what you're saying, dear," said the king. "How can we go on living if we abandon her? We both love her, as if she were our own daughter. Could we live with ourselves if we don't try to save her?" The queen lowered her head. "No," she said. "You're right. Forgive me." She turned to her son. "Do you want to rescue her that badly?" she asked. "More than anything." "Then you may go, on one condition. When you rescue her, return here. I will give her my white dress, the same dress my mother gave to me to be married in, and the same dress my mother provided for her wedding. Once you come back, you will take her hand and marry her." "Yes, mother." "And on that day you will inherit the kingdom and all that is in it. You will both rule wisely and peacefully in our place from that day forward," the king said. "Yes, father." Philippe kissed his mother's hand and his father's hand. They gave him food, money, and weapons to send him on his way. The king and queen watched him gallop off on his horse, and their hearts were weighted with sadness. They had wanted their son to fall in love with Beatrice, but they never imagined anything like this could happen. Philippe traveled many days and nights, always in the direction of the rising sun. Everywhere he stopped, he asked about the dragon. The ones who had seen it said the same thing. The dragon always appeared suddenly to steal a precious jewel here, a treasure chest there, or a golden statue from somewhere else, singing a taunting song. Then it vanished as quickly as it came. Nothing else was known about this dragon, but one thing was for certain. It always came from the east. Philippe knew he was traveling in the right direction. As long as he rode to the east, he would find the dragon and save his beloved Beatrice. As for Beatrice, the silver dragon held her prisoner. She lived in a dark limestone cave among piles of gold, jewels, and treasures, but she cared for none of it because she was so cruelly taken away from her beloved prince. The dragon explained everything on her first day there. The walls of this cave are high, and the only exit is when I fly out the ceiling. So do not think of escaping, the dragon said. You will spend your remaining days here, but there is no need for you to be bored. The dragon grabbed a music box made of gold and covered with precious jewels. It held the box out for her. See this? The dragon asked. This music box plays all the songs of the world, every song the singers and minstrels have ever heard, and many more that have been forgotten. All the songs of the world. But the foolish baron who owned it said it was the most precious thing in the world to him, and now it is mine. The princess sobbed in response. The silver dragon tried again. Or you could wear this, it said as it reached for a dress that hung high on a rack, woven by hand from the finest silks and satins, with rubies and sapphires stitched into the sleeves. The top layer is gold, stretched into filaments, and woven like a fabric, and people said it was more brilliant than the sun itself. But the countess who owned it called it the most precious thing in the world. So I took it. And now you give it to me? Beatrice shouted in rage. What kind of thief are you? The dragon looked shocked and insulted. That is, as much as a dragon with black, blank eyes can look shocked and insulted. You misunderstand, the dragon answered. I exist to teach mankind a lesson. For 1,000 years I have collected everything you see here. In all this time, nobles and kings have admired mere things and called them precious. But I take these things, and the ones who boasted of their possessions learned to do without. And that's why you carried me off? Beatrice shouted again. Of course. Someone must have called you the most precious thing in the world, or else you would not have ended up here. Beatrice looked at the thousands of treasures around her, all things someone had once called precious. She forced herself to calm down. You have all these treasures, she said. Yes, it took me 1,000 years, but these fools have learned their lesson. And how many people have you brought here? You are the first. Then this is a terrible mistake. What lesson could possibly be learned by keeping me prisoner? The silver dragon stared at her. Please, please let me go, Beatrice begged. I shouldn't be here. I exist to teach mankind a lesson, the dragon repeated, shaking its head. It snarled, and black flames shot out of its nostrils. Now Beatrice was more frightened of the dragon than ever. It is my duty, the dragon continued. Whenever a noble or a royal declares something to be the most precious thing in the world, I must take it away. I have done so for 1,000 years. I cannot start making exceptions now. But fear not, my beautiful princess, for I will keep you safe. Everything that is here, it is my duty to care for and protect from harm. The clocks are kept in working order. The silver I do not let tarnish, and the fine silks I place in a cedar chest, so moths will not destroy them. You too will be well taken care of. And now I must go. I hear a knight bragging about his suit of armor, and therefore I must take it from him." The silver dragon flew off. Beatrice watched it go, then fell on her bed to cry. A four-poster bed with golden columns, satin sheets, and a plush mattress filled with goose down, carried off from the palace of a duchess who once called it the most precious thing in the world to her.